Welcome to the School of Risk podcast, my friend Greg. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming to do this. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I know what you do is quite interesting and you do have some insights you want to share with us today and listeners. But let's start by getting to know you. Let listeners get to know who you are. Tell us who you are, what you do, and where you're based. We met a few years ago in Dubai. So you go ahead and let's get to know who you are.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And it's really been an interesting journey uh, to the data center world. I started my career in New York as part of an engineering company. At the time, we weren't designing data centers. They were called server rooms, and all the
I remember.
financial and
Yes,
all the financial institutions, those were the people that were
yes.
spending a lot of money on these server rooms. And so I started my career there as an intern. And 20 years later, I moved to Dubai. I started running a region, sitting on the operations committee for the firm. But throughout those 20 years of being in the data center industry, it was always about designing to the client's needs, making sure that reliability and uptime, because these clients, whether they were financial institutions or later on the technology companies, they all had a need to make sure that their equipment was operating 24 by 7, 365 days a year. And we had to design it to make sure that it attained that. And so that's been my background. I moved to this region, to Dubai, 10, almost 11 years ago, to open up an office. But it really turned out I was opening up a new company, and I had to learn the whole aspects of what does it take to keep the lights on, to sign the checks for the people, for the cleaners. In the US, I always had corporate to do that for me, but in this part of the world, I had to learn how to do it all under this, one roof. But the real focus of me moving here to this region is that we saw an opportunity at the time to bring the expertise and knowledge base of building and designing data centers to this part of the world, to the Middle East, and to the greater Middle East and Africa market. And the need was big, and it still is. And this is the interesting thing, is that the need for technology, for data centers, for digitization of systems is tremendous. And over the last, I would say, 2 years with COVID, that need has been exposed, and the growth in this part of the world is just tremendous. We are probably in one of the fastest growing regions for data centers in the world.
Really?
In the world. In the
Wow,
world.
that is incredible. And that's lots of opportunities, and obviously with data centers comes, other services that go with it. So if that need is massive as it sounds, it is. I'm familiar with a lot of the growth in that region. There's Dubai, there's Saudi Arabia, and there's all these crazy, crazy projects, mega projects, I call them, that they are, they're putting out there. And we need these data centers to service some of the infrastructures and applications that needs to run off these sites. Just for the purpose of our listeners, let's roll back a little bit to the basics. What are data centers, and why should we be interested in how data centers? I mean, I know the answer to this, but why should we be interested in how data centers affects us and what we do?
Excellent. That's an excellent question. I mean, if you think about it, data centers, to put it in a simplistic way, data centers are basically massive warehouses that store IT equipment that services everything that we do in this modern world. If I want to commute, if I want to use Facebook or Instagram or TikTok like the kids do now, I need a data center. If I want to use WhatsApp to send messages or to make a phone call, I need a data center. If I need to communicate with my bank to do online transactions, I need a data center. I want to use crypto. I want to mine crypto. Well, that's done inside of a data center. So the data center is basically at the basic level is where processing, storage, and mining of assets, data assets are kept and housed. And so it's like what we typically compare it to. We would say, before you start building a city, you need to build the roads. Data centers form that road. It's the basic infrastructure that's needed for this world of technology that we live in today. So it's in the background. No one knows about it and no one thinks about it except for people like myself or those that are in the industry. And we realize that without it, and during COVID, it really showed, without the right infrastructure, we couldn't have worked from home. We couldn't have been on Zoom calls communicating with our friends and family members. And so it is really, it has become a utility. Like you get water, you get power. Well, now you have data center services or cloud services needed for what we do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, you made something that sounded so complex, so simplistic, and really without data centers, none of the applications we use today would operate. It's as simple as that.
That is so true. And this is where the opportunity is, because now if I want to do more of this, if I want to, we're talking about driverless cars. We're talking about Internet of Things. We're talking
Yeah.
about 5G. Well, at the core of all of those things are data centers in the background doing their work and providing the services that these systems ride on to be able to deliver whatever it is that these companies are delivering to the end users and to the customers like you and I. And so that's why it's so important that in the developing world, whether we're talking about Africa, which is like the last bastion of expansion
Yes.
for 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 this type of technology, it's needed. And um, if these countries and these region if they want to leapfrog to the next stage of development, they need these data centers.
Data centers, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up brought up Africa in this subject, because I've had the opportunity of being on some projects in Africa, with the banks and some government establishments. And it, Africa is still way behind, and a lot of the times what they try to do is outsource services, and there's a lot of complication when it comes to outsourcing services. If you think about the geographical region and the cultural difference, how do you bridge that when we got Africa and then maybe outsourcing to India or wherever? It's difficult. But I know some of the telecoms companies, the big telecom companies in Africa, in Nigeria specifically, are beginning to have small, what I don't know if I call them data centers or server rooms, and their own operating centers where they can manage their systems. But still, the technology is not there. What do they need to do, or what do we need to do? How do we get Africa to the same level as the Middle East and the West, so that they can operate efficiently and, deliver more services and reduce costs to the consumers, because consumers are paying double, triple the price of some of the things that we,
Yeah. The,
over here.
this is the again, this is where the opportunity resides. Um, in a lot of the countries across Africa right now, same for the Middle East, most have passed data sovereignty laws where it says something to the effect, if data of national importance needs to be stored in country.
Within, yeah.
So I can no longer have health data being stored in another country or banking data being stored in another country, even if there are international and global banks working within the borders, they need to store that data in country.
And that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now you have to say, okay, do I have the infrastructure to be able to house and service this growth of data that needs to be in country? And then you say, okay, well, I want to provide other services. I want to digitize my bank. I want to digitize healthcare. I want to provide 5G. Well, if you want to do those things, you need to have the right infrastructure in country within your borders to be able to provide, again, that basic layer, that fundamental core layer that's required.
Yes.
So that is driving the need for data centers across Africa, from Southern Africa to North Africa, East and West, across Africa. We're seeing major commitments from major companies, billions of dollars worth of commitments of projects across Africa. There was a study that was done a couple years ago, and they saw a shortfall on the need of data centers across Africa. The estimated shortfall was about 1,000 megawatts of capacity, or 1 gigawatt of capacity. Shortfall that needs to be built to say, okay, now we're at a level playing field across Africa.
Okay, now let's see. Some people may not understand the quantity we're talking about here. How would you describe that in, say, size of you may be using the football field to, put that into
So the way I can compare it, if I take 1 megawatt, right? If I say take 1 megawatt, that could feed anywhere from, depending on the city we're talking about, 500 homes.
Okay.
Now we need 1,000 megawatts capacity. So this is like building small cities across Africa of just pure data centers that will warehouse and keep this IT infrastructure that can then service and provide the services, whether it's for storage of data of national importance, whether it's to provide 5G services, whether it's to provide all these other digitization means and methods to help certain industries. And so if we look at it that way, the potential growth of data centers in Africa is tremendous. So that means what? That means opportunities for new students. That means opportunities for those looking to make potentially a mid-career shift. That means opportunities to train homegrown engineers, technicians within those countries to be able to service these data centers.
That's
So
huge.
massive industry, massive industry. And the thing about it, most people know nothing about this opportunity that exists right in their backyard, right?
Okay, so how? Because okay, I'm thinking about Nigeria because I'm of Nigerian descent, and I know that there are lots of you mentioned students, there are lots of technology students, but by the time they graduate, these opportunities are not there, so that knowledge is wasted.
Yeah, yeah.
What is done now? Because it's all about, so the opportunity is there, and there's no need. I mean, I don't think there's any need to go outside to try or to increase the cost of services or products and all that stuff when the opportunity is there. What's holding, when I say private entities or government entities, from capitalizing on this opportunity and making things a lot better and easier?
You know, part of it has been, if we're honest, capital. These data centers require massive amount of capital to build. Um, the good news is that I think there are a lot of private entities as well as governmental entities. The governments can set the frameworks to open the door for these investments to come in. The
Mhm.
private entities can take advantage, and whether it's foreign direct investment within the country or even some homegrown capital that can invest in building these data centers. Um, we're already seeing this happen. There was an announcement, I think, earlier this year of Equinix buying a major homegrown data center group in Nigeria.
Mhm.
And so you have an international, so a home grown data center provider, and said, okay, we will invest in you. We will and we will buy you and invest in you to grow and bringing that knowledge base from outside as well. There are other, Nigeria and South Africa are probably ahead of the game than most in Africa, but I see pockets all across, whether it's in East Africa, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Tanzania, um, in West Africa, as I mentioned, Nigeria,
Yeah.
Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, of course, but across the continent as well. Whether we're talking about Egypt or Morocco or Tunisia, they all have the similar need, some more so than others, but the investment dollars are starting to trickle and make their way across the continent. And this is where the opportunity exists for those in country to be part of it, and also for people like myself and others who have
Yes.
an interest in working on the continent to be able to bring expertise and knowledge base so that those investment dollars are going to the right places, and the investors, of course, are seeing the return on their investment, which is a key thing.
Absolutely. Wow, that's it. The opportunity is endless. And what's the way forward now to, to start to implement some of these ideas, whether it's in Africa or in the Middle East. I mean, the Middle East are ahead of the game, right now with a lot of what's going on. What's the way forward? You mentioned those uh, what do they call it? Data sovereignty laws that prevents you know data from leaving the country, being stored somewhere else. In the UK, EU here, we have the GDPR laws, which obviously makes sense. So it's not bypassing, but making sure that we have the infrastructure to maintain our data in Africa, or Middle East with the right infrastructures. What's the way forward now to start to actualize this? Because yes, we can see some of the activities taking place with regards to Equinox being bought, but what can be done now to take things forward?
Well, it's interesting. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what I'm seeing currently in the market, whether it's in the Middle East and then branching out to Africa. In the Middle East right now, the UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, uh, the growth of data centers every other week for the last 2 years. It seems like there was a new player announcing a new data center campus here, and everyone's talking 20, 30 megawatt capacities per per site. That growth and those investments are being made. Some of those projects are being built and moving forward. In Saudi, mega projects have been announced. Different entities, billions of dollars worth of data centers need to be built in Saudi,
Yes.
similar to Kuwait, Qatar, and the rest. As you start moving into into Africa, North Africa, whether we're talking Morocco and Egypt and the likes, Tunisia, there's a need for data centers and investments are starting to be made. And we hear these announcements where it's not just, there are some homegrown companies, let's say to the continent, and then you have the international firms, because they all are looking for ways to expand and to grow their base.
What for these international firms? What sort of firms are we talking about? Are we talking about,
we're talking about American firms,
yeah.
we're talking about European firms, we're talking about some of the Asian firms as well, making investments and saying, we will build a hub in South Africa, or we will build a hub in East Africa, et cetera. And so it's not just words, but those words are now being translated into hard commitments, capital commitments on the ground, where uh, data centers are being master planned and being constructed. Behind these investments, now, who are the clients that are going to utilize these investments? Well, it's the big cloud service providers, the ones that we call the hyperscalers, the Amazons, the Googles, the Microsofts of the world, the Alibabas of the world, that are utilizing this massive investment that is being built. I mean, think of it this way: if I want to go into a new country, and it's easier for me to lease the infrastructure than for me to go and try and build it myself. So let someone else take the construction risk. Let someone else take the capital risk of building a data center. And then now I can come in on the back end and say, okay, I need X megawatt capacity, and I'll lease it from you on a monthly rate. And so it makes sense for these hyperscalers to utilize these companies. And so if they already have a relationship with these international firms, let's say out of the US, out of Europe, or out of Asia, then it's an easier thing for them to make a commitment, let's say to a Nigeria or to a South Africa or to a Kenya, knowing that, hey, these firms are building to my standards or to international standards that we can live with, and then we'll just come in and lease from them. We already know them from the West, et cetera. So we're seeing, and I'm seeing, these commitments are being made, projects are being built, and now once the projects are built, the clients are committed. There's still a major risk that exists within that whole environment.
Absolutely. One of the risks that I want to just highlight is that of supply chain risk, and and the reason I say this is because I know that consumers in Africa, Nigeria sometimes want to. You mentioned Amazon. I will use Amazon as an example. They've seen an item, they've seen a product on Amazon, and they want to order it, but then you hear Amazon doesn't deliver directly to Nigeria, or some other company don't provide these services to Nigeria because, number one, they haven't got a hub, they haven't got a presence. So I see that's an ice cream van. I don't know if you can hear that. The ice cream
reminds me of my youth.
It's getting warmer now. It's high temperatures now. That's why ice cream vans are going around. So there is a direct correlationship between data centers, distribution hubs, or logistics centers, and all that stuff. In order to, because it's all about providing services and products to the end users. Without the end users, these hubs would not exist. So how do we start to, bring all this together to fulfill the services, or to fulfill the needs where there are gaps now when it comes to products and services, that mainly products that consumers need in relation to data centers, logistic or supply chain hubs, and getting products to consumers?
This is so I mean there are a few buckets that I could put the various risk in.
And yeah,
Uh, and since you started on the supply chain, let's start there. Supply chain in terms of developing and building these data centers, there's a major risk. I mean, globally right now,
yeah,
supply chain is out of whack. Whether we're talking about coming from
it is.
China or coming from
Yes,
Eastern Europe,
yes,
we have issues all over.
yes.
And not only that, because of these data centers are so equipment heavy,
Hmm.
meaning transformers and generators and chillers, etc. They use a lot of commodity, and so there's a uh, if there's volatility in the commodities market, it will reflect in not only the costs of these equipment that I would buy from the manufacturers, but also the timing in which it takes to build this equipment in the factories. So right
Yes.
now, that's a major risk, not just to Africa, but to the data
No
center
way. Yeah.
globally. So that's a risk that the data center providers, those firms making the capital investments, they have teams just dedicated to figuring out how to minimize and reduce or manage some of that risk,
Hmm.
in terms of supply chain. So I mentioned that, you build the data center, you even have a client to lease it to. There's still another major risk, and the major risk is people.
It is people. Yes, I was going to touch on that. It's people, and there's also the risk of connectivity. So when I say connectivity, we're talking about telecoms. How do you networks and stuff?
Yes.
Piping of networks and things like that, because yes, there is. I mean, without you can't even get broadband in some places or that kind of connectivity, and it's so expensive, and that adds to cost.
Yes, yes. So you mentioned two things there. If we look at connectivity, there are a number of undersea cable
Yeah,
projects right now going on that will connect across Africa out to the Middle East, out to Asia, out to Europe, etc. So in the upcoming years, we see that these undersea cable projects will do a lot to improve at least the external connectivity. Now, the internal to countries in terms of running fibers, that's still a major issue.
it
And
is.
as that gets potentially some resolved, it can only improve the services that these service providers, the data center providers, are providing to the local market. So there's the undersea cables, few projects underway right now,
Yes.
and then the internal to the country distribution networks of fiber across the boundaries of the country. So I think if those two things happen,
Yeah, I think Etisalat is. I remember. I think a few years ago, Etisalat were looking at. I don't know where they've gone with that project. They were, getting some undersea. They had some undersea projects, undersea connectivity projects going on. I don't know if that's been completed or where that's at now, but I know they have
there's
it in Nigeria.
yeah, I think there's probably three or four major projects, undersea cable projects, across Africa that I think will again looking at what the need from these cloud service providers to be able to have external connectivity, which I think that will help solve some of the connectivity problems. Now we talked about people,
People risk, yes.
the risk with people. Well, if I
What's the biggest
build
risk there? What's the biggest risk? What would you say is the biggest risk?
if I build a campus, 24 megawatts of data centers, who's going to run and operate it?
Yeah.
Who's going to service this equipment that I have spent now millions of dollars,
Yes.
who's going to run it? And in a way, the good news is this is not just an issue to Africa
Yes.
or to the Middle East. This is an issue. It's a global issue in the data center industry, that
Yeah.
we have a need for talent,
Yes.
and and there again lies an opportunity.
Education.
Education to
One.
train
Yeah, to
and
train.
to even people that may already be in the market, that maybe had a degree in something else,
Yes.
doing a mid-career shift, and but they have the aptitude to learn and to grow, that can be trained to work in this industry. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Last week we visited a maritime college, a
Yeah.
maritime university. And one of the professors was telling us that they train, let's say, 500 students a year, but they can't find enough jobs for these
Wow.
students. And these students learn how to work on ships, whether they're electrical engineers or mechanical engineers, or they learn all the heavy equipment that is that's applicable to the data center field.
Yes.
I told this professor, we should tie this university to the data center marketplace, because we have a need and you have a supply. You're supplying engineers to a market where these students can't find ships to work on.
Yes.
Um, I could probably find 10 data centers that would hire them tomorrow, because they have the right background, the right training.
Yes.
Now, if you translate that into the Middle East and into Africa, look, not everyone has to be an engineer.
Nope.
We need technicians as well. We
Yes.
need good service technicians that understand some of this equipment, that can do basic maintenance on some of this equipment. Can I train a group of students in the Middle East or in Africa to be able to do this? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. And that would create, as a matter of fact, it's better um if I'm able to fulfill this need within the local marketplace, because now I know I have a talent pool that I've developed, that's not going to, after 4 or 5 years, say, I want to go home. They're already home.
Yes.
And so they're,
We
they're already home.
address that risk. Yes. Yeah. And then you avoid the so, because sometimes what people do is they go hire from overseas, and that piles on costs. So I mean, I'm using Nigeria as an example because I know that the people are ready, they're willing. So it's a case of utilizing the people on ground. And I mentioned education earlier on. We probably need to have some kind of education center around this, to help train people and get them ready to operate these data centers. And the more we have people who are ready, and I think that's going to really drive the market. And when it drives that market, drive that sector, then that opportunity we were talking about earlier on, starts to become, starts to widen. And, companies start to come in and investment starts to flow.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the most interesting thing is that at every level, whether as the technician, the engineers, the senior engineers, the project managers, both what we call MEP engineers and IT engineers. So it's a broad sector of people, the management layer, managing people, managing the business. So it's a broad sector across many different areas where homegrown talent is needed. And I know I've traveled, I've had the opportunity to travel across a multitude of countries across Africa and here in the Middle East. There is homegrown talent everywhere.
Absolutely.
It exists. We
Absolutely.
just have to be able to give them the right training, put them in the right environment to
Yes.
be able to grow. I'll tell you my story. I said I started my career as an intern,
Mhm.
right? I started my career as an intern. I had one project in Rockefeller Center where myself and this other young engineer, and we were given this project. It was a 2-week project at the C4 level, like so the fourth basement level of one of the buildings in Rockefeller Center. And it just
Yeah.
happened to be that that floor was the floor that uh, the the trucks were backing up and unloading. The loading dock was in. So we probably had um, um, some carbon monoxide, poisoning or something during our little internship, but we survived.
Yes, you did.
But at the end of that project, because we delivered for the chief engineer of that building, he was able to call the office and he told my ex-boss at the time, he said, "This kid is good, hire him." And that was the start of my career.
Wow.
And that was the start of my career, 20 years at this firm. And from an intern to vice president and principal, managing director, running a region. But it started with that small internship, with that small project. But then I was put in the right environment that it was able to nurture me over the years to be able to go on managing, you know, $1 million worth of data center projects. But it started at the very beginning as an internship, and this is what I see is available to a lot of students, to a lot of motivated people across the Middle East and Africa.
Absolutely. It's great that you had that background because you've taken that and now you have your own company. Tell us a little bit about your company and what it does.
Sure, sure. So I run a company called X2X Group. We are a technology and data center advisory firm. So we start very early on from the concept and strategy side with clients who say, I have a need for digitization, I have a need for data centers, but I don't know where to start. And we come in and help them to assess their needs, figure out how best to proceed in a staged manner, whether it's their uh, digitize digitizing their operations. That often leads to having a data center. So I can start here. We're talking about I just want to digitize my processes, but we always end up I need a data center as part of this. And
Wow.
so being able to talk both IT and infrastructure, we can really help the clients to strategize and to see really what are their needs and to customize and tailor a response for them. So that's on one end. So that's the X2X group,
Yes.
and I also have a startup, a data center startup with two other co-founders, and called GoTech RDC, and we have master planned um, a data center campus here in Dubai, and we are looking to grow that not just to Dubai, but also potentially in other markets across the GCC and potentially Africa as well, where we can bring that expertise to the local market.
That's incredible. And what you pretty much have demonstrated, what I like to call people who are active risk takers. You started from an intern, 20 years on, you got your company, you got this or that, tech company startup, and this is really remarkable because one thing I like to do is to say to people that you can do whatever you put your mind into. You can get into a career, you can rise in that career, you can be the best that you can, and you can also take the ideas you have and build something for yourself. And you have demonstrated this, because I think, we need to be able to help people in some of these regions, for example, Africa, which is, usually referred to as a developing nation, to rise up. Because I mean, I like to say, if one person succeeds, not everyone succeeds. But if everyone succeeds, we all succeed together. So how do we now start to, and I know you're beginning to do this now with the new startup, but we want to now make this more global, or increase this opportunity for others. What do we need to do to take our expertise to help people in these developing nations like Africa? We're talking about here. We've got data center. We've seen that there is a huge opportunity, out there. And I'll talk to you offline about something that came to my mind, during this conversation. But we want to actualize these things. What can we have to do to make this happen?
Yeah, yeah. What is the expression? Rising tides lifts all shifts. Is that it?
Yes,
Well, I'm a firm believer in collaboration. I'm a
absolutely.
firm believer in working with others. Look, I don't know everything, but I have a good network that I know if I need something, I can collaborate with the right people to be able to deliver,
Absolutely.
whether it's a service or product to an end user customer. And so it's all about, I mean, the last 4 or 5 years, I have been traveling across the continent of Africa and the Middle East, to establish relationships.
Have you done Nigeria yet?
I have. I went to Lagos, and
Oh, you went to
I have
Lagos.
never felt more alive than when we were
You
in Lagos.
experienced
There's
Lagos.
something about that place, man.
Lagos it's got a buzz. It's got a real good buzz.
You know,
You should visit the capital, Abuja. I spend a lot of time in the capital when I'm in Nigeria. But Lagos, yes, it's got a buzz.
it has a buzz. There are certain cities in the world, whether it's New York or Dubai or Lake, they have an energy to the city that when you're there, you feel it. And
Yes,
so it really has been about establishing relationships so that the local partners on the ground know the services and the products that we can provide. And when there's a need, we can collaborate together. They understand the local market better than I do.
absolutely, yes,
And I have expertise they don't have, but
yes.
together we can deliver in that local market. And so I'm all about collaboration with the right people that are of similar uh, uh, um,
Mindset.
mindset, that sees things the same way, or in a similar way, so that we can work together to deliver.
Deliver value, because some people, yeah, it's all about delivering value at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm happy to say that over the years we've been able to collaborate on projects in Zambia, in Tanzania, in Morocco, in South Africa, in Djibouti. So we've been able to collaborate with different people to be able to deliver projects, and work on projects across the continent, and really in a collaborative manner, and bring the value. You know, I have 25, almost 26 years now of knowledge base in this industry. And so if I'm able to bring that to the table, if I'm able to bring that to a country, that's what I've been doing in the recent past, and I'm looking forward to do even more of that in the future, because I think now that we seem to be getting at a point where COVID is not a pandemic, it's endemic. We will have to learn to live with it like we do with yellow
Absolutely.
fever and
The
the
cold
rest.
blue, yes, absolutely.
So we it's about getting back on the road and really collaborating with the local partners to be able to see the need, to tailor a solution for that need, and to be able to deliver it on the ground.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Greg. It's been fascinating. And I know there's so much going on in this space. And we're not going to be able to fill this space or fill the whole day, since what's really happening. So I'm really, really, glad that you've come here to share your knowledge, your insight. There are a lot of things you talked about that I didn't even know myself. So it's really great that you've come to highlight the need, the opportunity that exists, and if we can exploit these opportunities and make them a reality and add value to the lives of people who are on ground in Africa and the Middle East, we help feed people and give them purpose in their life, or help them achieve their own purpose.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for inviting me to be on the podcast. And I think there's having this type of dialogue, this type of conversation is necessary to be able to highlight the opportunities that exist out there to the greater masses. Because I think if they knew the opportunities that exist in their own backyard, they would focus a lot more on trying to build something in country, as opposed to always wanting to travel out abroad to
Yes.
be able to find their careers or
Yeah.
whatever they're dreaming of.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that opportunity exists in country,
It
but
does.
it just has to be framed in the right way to be able to get the local population to see it, to believe it, and to be a part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the future is it's only going to get better, with these opportunities being exploited. So if people want to get in touch with you, to obviously reach out to you in terms of what you do, how can they find you?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn, Greg Jasmin on LinkedIn, or they can even reach out to me on Twitter, Greg Jasmin. I keep it simple. They'll find, just put that name on Google, and they'll find me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and they can reach out to me. My DMs are open, and I'm very responsive to those that reach out to me.
That's incredible, because sometimes people don't reach out when you DM them, but I like that. I'm active as well. I mean, I respond to people when they DM me, so I think
And
it's good that we keep that opportunity, that you know communication window open.
absolutely. And I forgot to mention the website, X2X Group.com.
Fantastic. The last question is a superhero question I ask everyone.
Okay.
Who would you say is a superhero to you in relation to the impact they've had on your life, and why?
Wow. I wasn't
Fictional or
warned on that question, but you know
fictional or
what?
non-fictional?
You know who I really consider to be a superhero to me. And this might sound a little bit, um, you know, uh, uh, corny, but my parents, man, my parents, my
You were the
mom and
first
dad,
to say that. You are the first to say the parents on this show.
my mom and dad took it upon themselves to leave their home country as immigrants to the U.S. and to start a new life.
Wow.
And somehow they were able to raise three kids with the meager salaries they had, and three kids that went to school, and one is went for finance, the other for engineering and art, and the third for finance. I'm the only non-finance guy in my family,
The only
but
tech guy.
but they were able to make it work. And now, having kids of my own, I see and I ask myself, how did they do it? um but yeah, they are definitely, and they taught us the values that still live with us till this day, and that guide us in what we do. So yeah, I have to say they're my superheroes.
That's amazing. I love that. You were the first person to, mention their parents as the superheroes in this question. And what country did they come from before they moved to the US?
A little island in the Caribbean called Haiti.
Haiti. Oh, wow.
The first independent Black nation in the world.
In the world. Wow, that's amazing. Do you go back to Haiti? Have you visited at any point?
In 2014, my wife, 3 kids, we went down there, and there was something about the place we felt home.
Wow.
The kids loved it.
Your wife Haitian as well?
Yeah, she is. She's Haitian as well. It was her first time going back in 30 some odd years, and to be able to go back again, saw massive opportunities everywhere I went. Unfortunately, things are not always the best down there, but the
Yeah.
people are resilient, and they are proud of who they are, and they're hard workers, and that's something that we just really loved and appreciate about Haiti. And maybe one day I'll have an opportunity to do a project there as well.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Greg, this has been fascinating, from meeting at the seminar in Dubai in 2019, and here we are today. It just shows that, like you talked about earlier, when you meet the right people and, you form some kind of connection, and that develops into something else. And here we are talking about, what you do, talking about data centers and how we can influence the world positively. So I really do appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And we will be talking.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode with Greg Jasmin. I bet you didn't know some of the things you learned today on this episode about data centers and how it affects your everyday life through some of the basic infrastructures you use. I am committed to bringing you content like this so you can stay informed with the right information that can make a positive impact in your life and those of your loved ones. Please leave us a message using the link in the show bio to let us know what you love most about this episode. Also, don't forget to check out our previous shows that is full of so much value. You don't want to miss out on that information that we've been putting out for the last 3 months now. New shows drop every week, and don't forget to click the follow or subscribe button to be notified when they are released. I am your host, your risk champ, Chizubele Gudo, here on the School of Risk podcast. Today's risk message is this. I urge you to carry out risk analysis on yourself by examining yourself regularly. Ask yourself, what are the things that are for or against me? When you communicate with yourself in this manner, every cell in your body receives the information you transmit through that exercise and could help you be a better version of yourself. Thank you.